Good morning, everyone. The Premier has some comments to make, and then you're going to hear from Fort McMurray Mayor Melissa Blake, and then you're going to hear from Brigadier General Wayne Eyre, and then Chad Morrison will give a fire update, and then any of those folks will be available to take your questions.
Okay, thank you. I'm here for an update. I'm here to update Albertans on the wildfire crisis in Fort McMurray. I'm honored to be joined today by the Mayor for Fort McMurray, Melissa Blake, by Municipal Affairs Minister Danielle Larrivée, who is coordinating our provincial response, and by Brigadier General Wayne Eyre from the Canadian Forces, as well as Chad Morrison and Scott Long. Let me begin by thanking from the bottom of my heart the thousands of Albertans and other Canadians who have come together to help address this disaster. These have been days to see the work of real heroes. The firefighters who are struggling to contain this fire and save as much of the city as possible. The police officers, the health professionals, the DND flyers and personnel, the workers who scrambled to turn work camps into reception centers, the good citizens who got out there to share water, food, fuel, diapers. The municipal administration, led by Mayor Blake, who led a remarkable response to a sudden disaster, and the incredibly dedicated and hard-working team of federal, provincial, municipal, and NGO leaders right here at the Provincial Operations Centre in Edmonton. Thank you to everyone who is helping these heroes address this disaster. And thank you to the brave, determined, and neighbourly people of Fort McMurray who responded and are responding so calmly and effectively to this crisis that is challenging your community. Alberta and all of Canada are with you. We have your back, and we are going to make sure you have the help you need today, tomorrow, and in the weeks and months to come as we rebuild. That's how we do it here in Alberta. So let me update you now on the situation. The fire continues to burn out of control. Today, the fire covers over 101,000 hectares. Winds continue to blow the fire to the southeast of the city last night. The fire reached Anzac, but it remains mostly intact as far as we know, as does Long Lake. The wind is expected to soon shift to the southwest, or from the southwest, and it will push the fire to the northeast, and that will send the fire into the forestry areas away from the community. Job one remains to keep people and get people safe. As we reported yesterday, approximately 25,000 residents of Fort McMurray took shelter to the north of the city. An estimated 7,000 of these residents were evacuated yesterday by flights organized by energy companies, the AER, and DND, executed by the wonderful people who work at WestJet, Arctic Air, DND, and other carriers. Thank you so much to everyone who is involved in this effort. Today, we are working to move the roughly 15,000 people remaining north of the city in land convoys and by air. We are hoping to get about 5,500 people out by air. We are hoping to get at least 500 vehicles out by ground. The convoys began to move at approximately 6 a.m. this morning. The RCMP is escorting convoys of vehicles through the city and the fire zone. Food, water, and fuel are being provided by emergency personnel along the route. The traffic is currently free-flowing and is going well. We are fighting this fire. Firefighters have been working bravely, effectively, and in brutally long days and nights to save the city of Fort McMurray. We have been fighting the fire using every tool available to firefighters. As of this morning, the downtown is largely intact. The hospital is still standing. The telephone center is intact. The water treatment center is back up and running. Municipal buildings and the airport also remain intact. Firefighters have also been working to save as much of the residential areas as possible. We've been able to hold the line for the most part in those residential areas. We've all seen the heartbreaking images taken by citizens traveling through Fort McMurray today, and there is no doubt the damage is extensive and will take many months to repair. We are working to ensure every person displaced by this disaster is safe and then has a home. We are doing everything we can to ensure that people who have fled this fire have shelter and everything else that they need. As I said last night, I urge you once again to please register online at redcross.ca. Nearly 14,000 households have done so already. We're just waiting to hear from the rest of you. One of the key issues facing people displaced by this disaster is immediate challenges, food and shelter. As we did after the Slave Lake fire and the southern Alberta flood, Cabinet today authorized the government to provide emergency financial assistance to people who have been displaced. We will provide $1,250 per adult and $500 per dependent. We will provide this assistance to approximately 80,000 people. We hope to deliver these funds to you in the coming days by Wednesday next week. This will cost the government approximately $100 million. Our hope is that the immediate crisis will be under control as soon as possible. We will then be turning to securing the city, making it safe, and beginning reconstruction. I want to repeat a very important thing I said last night. The city of Fort McMurray is not safe to return to, and this will be true for a significant period of time. So the town site is going to be secured and protected by the RCMP. Once the fire is away from the city and the immediate crisis and danger has passed, we'll be able to assess the damage and we'll be able to give the people of Fort McMurray a sense of when it will be possible to return. Please don't try to return until our emergency coordinators have confirmed that it is safe to do so. So I spoke of heroes a moment ago, and I'd now like to invite one of those heroes to say a few words, the Mayor of Fort McMurray, Melissa Blake.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I've been a bit of a mystery figure other than my social media tweeting going on. I've got to apologize for that, but the truth of the matter is Council and I are 100% behind our community, but we too are members of the community and have our challenges to overcome with the evacuation. I am one who can stand with firsthand experience and absolute gratitude and delight in the way that the people of my community have been treated from A to Z in this process. Fires are certainly a frightening thing, and you're seeing many frightening images, and they're not false, but they're also not the whole story. The whole story is that we are a strong and resilient community, and the friends and family and people who are worried about our folks, I need to assure you, everybody has been out safe and sound. We've got more that we're moving, and we will get them out, and we are absolutely eternally grateful for the people who are on the ground fighting this vicious fire. We know, and I know firsthand, that it's not just the folks on the ground that are making this a huge difference. We're standing here in the Provincial Emergency Operations Centre. You don't see the faces that I'm seeing, but they're all important in this fight as well. And when I look to the folks that are receiving us in the shelters, the people who are preparing the meals behind the scenes, the donations that are coming in from across this country, and even parts of the world, I am absolutely overwhelmed. I said that I am a mayor who is very prepared to face tragedy and loss. I'm not a mayor who's so prepared to take all this overwhelming support. If you see me in weak moments, it's because I am absolutely overwhelmed by what we've received. So I want to end this with simple thanks and an ask of my citizens to remember how blessed we all are. Thank you.
General. Brigadier General Wayne Eyre will say a few words.
Ladies and gentlemen, as mentioned, my name is Brigadier General Wayne Eyre, and I command the 3rd Canadian Division and Joint Task Force West. And as such, I'm in charge of the military response to assist the province of Alberta in this crisis. First of all, I'd like to thank Premier Notley not only for her leadership, but for inviting me to speak to you today. There was a number of questions during this session yesterday regarding the military response, so hopefully I can address some of those as well. I'd like to say we've been closely monitoring the situation, and our hearts go out to all of those who've been forced to evacuate from their homes up in the Fort McMurray area. And moreover, the support and resiliency of all Albertans is truly impressive, and indeed that goes across the country to all Canadians. Now, through every step of this disaster, we have been very closely integrated with provincial authorities at the Provincial Operations Centre here in Edmonton. That's the way we do business in all of our provincial capitals. And as the situation started to unfold, our planning efforts were very, very collaborative. And we had very early warning of what the ask was going to be from the Department of National Defence. And I can tell you that specific ask was to assist with the evacuation, especially in isolated locations, and to assist in the transportation of essential equipment and personnel to those isolated locations. So specifically, what we have provided is the following. We have 4 CH-146 Griffin helicopters operating out of Conklin who are conducting tasks. We have 1 CH-147 Chinook helicopter that's going to be up in the same location later on this afternoon. And I have to add, this is going to be the first time that new helicopter has been employed on domestic operations. And we've got a C-130J Hercules transport aircraft, which is shuttling supplies back and forth. Specifically, the tasks that we've been doing with our helicopters, we've been conducting reconnaissance to feed information to provincial authorities. We've been transporting the first responders back and forth to some of these isolated locations. We've been providing some fire surveillance at night to use some of our special night vision equipment to monitor the progress of the fire and give early warning of any changes. We've been providing search and rescue capability as required. And just this morning, we started doing what we call convoy overwatch as the ground convoys under RCMP control move to the south. It's a technique that we use to great extent in Afghanistan and is very applicable to this situation here. I can tell you that our C-130 has been very busy with the multitude of civilian aircraft that are out there, evacuating people from the north and shuttling supplies, food, water, medical supplies back up to the north. Some may ask, what is the role of the ground troops in this? And to date, there has not yet been an ask. Sufficient capacity exists. However, we are poised to support as the call comes in. As usual, we maintain an immediate reaction unit on very short notice to move to support any disaster across the West here. Finalement, je voudrais ajouter que votre force armée canadienne est bien préparée et prête pour ce type de crise. Nous sommes bien préparés pour répondre aux demandes de la province et nous allons fournir les soutiens demandés. I'd like to say your Canadian Armed Forces is poised to support in this time of crisis, and we are ready to provide what is required. Thank you very much.
And Chad, go ahead with the update.
Thanks. Chad Morrison with Alberta Wildfire. I'll give you an update on the fire as we know at this time. As the Premier noted, the fire is 101,000 hectares in size. With the strong northwest winds yesterday, it pushed the fire to the southeast and challenged us near the communities of Anzac and the Nexon Long Lake facility. We put tankers in around right beside Anzac to try and hold the fire at the doorstep. And at this point, the fire has passed Anzac, but we don't know any more details at this point. The fire is still 5 kilometers away from the Gregoire Lake area. We did hold the line yesterday in many places in the community in the north. We continued to establish dozer guard in the Parson Creeks area, followed up with firefighters, and firefighters worked in the Timberley, Thickwood, and downtown areas to continue to secure that, as well as clean up some of the areas around the airport and secure there. Homes and critical infrastructure continue to be protected and one of the top priorities. Can we move to the larger map? Thanks. So today, for fire behavior, we expect the winds to come from the southwest to push it into the northeast here away from the community. As you'll note, there's actually another fire up here. This is 2 fires that have combined. These fires were a result of the lightning from the weather that was created from the larger fire here. We expect over the next 2 days, with lots of extreme fire behavior still to come, that these fires will continue to move up into here, into the Clearwater River Valley. This is good news for the communities of Anzac and Gregoire Lakes area and the Nexon Long Lake facility, as the winds will be pushing the fire away, as well as the fire will be pushing away from the community. We feel also, too, that we've made very good progress in the north ports here, that we feel that we can continue to hold the line in there, but it's still early days, and we expect extreme wildfire behavior in much of the forested areas as the days to come. And at that point, that's the general overview. We'll open up to questions for afterwards. Thank you.
Take questions from the floor, and then we'll take questions from the phone.
The notion of assistance to people, Premier, sorry, I just pointed, that was rude.
That's
Yeah, so that's the amount that's coming to people. How is that exactly getting out? Are there any details about that yet? Do people need to apply? What are the details?
we'll be rolling out those details as it becomes more available. It will probably be modeled on a similar program that we saw both in Slave Lake and with the Southern Alberta floods. The amounts will in essence be the same. We're just working out the details of the delivery and the timing. As I said, I'm hoping that we have that available to evacuees, especially those who are most in need, by mid next week.
By next week, okay. And the amount of structures that have been, I guess, destroyed in Fort McMurray, you said structures. Is there any idea how many actual homes yet? Do we have a number, or when will we have a number?
Do we have? I don't think we have any new numbers, do we?
Still have the original number, ma'am. We're not doing damage assessment. We're still fighting.
Right, yeah, so you got that answer. You don't need it again on Mike? Okay.
I'd like to ask about the flat top complex report and how the recommendations from that were employed in this area. Just if we have much details on that and how much was spent kind of throughout the province on that.
On the flat top. Okay, that one I'm going to pass on to Chad. Thanks.
Sure. Yes. Thanks. The question was about the lessons learned from the flat top complex. So we responded to all 21 recommendations of the flat top complex report with great support from the government. I can also report too that we had an additional 200 firefighters added to our firefighting force as a result of that review, and we continue to expand our capability. And really, our experiences in Slave Lake, taught us many things and helped us respond very rapidly and effectively here as a group, and not only as a wildfire organization, but as an emergency response organization with the province of Alberta. So the lessons learned there have definitely helped us out here in this situation.
How has firefighting changed since Slave Lake, I guess?
Firefighting is still firefighting. These are dangerous fires, unpredictable. Mother Nature is going to move these fires on us, and we can only do as first responders what you can do, and that is get people out of the way, try and protect as much of the community and the values as we can. The difference between the Slave Lake wildfire and this one, Slave Lake wildfire was a wind-driven fire. That fire, the big hit was the main one day with 100-kilometer-hour winds. This fire is a fuel-driven fire, which is a result of very dry drought conditions over a long period of time. We have not seen rain in this area for the last 2 months of significance, and so that's why this fire continues to burn will continue to burn for a very long time until we see significant rain. Once we see some rain, even then, we're still going to need all those firefighters to get out there and put that fire out at the end of the day.
Mayor Blake, ask you just what the last 4 days, how they've been for you as the leader of this community and trying to get information out to residents. How has this been for you?
I started from the very beginning by calling media our partners, and they've been critical in getting the messages out. But there was a period of time where we lost flow of information, and it was really predicated on the necessity of our Regional Emergency Operations Center having to move from location to location to location to avoid the fire itself. So we're back in stable ground again, and I think that the communications and the introduction of having true allies coming from the province, I felt that I am a whole lot more confident that we've got good control in that center, and I'm very optimistic that at least the communications will continue to flow. Now that I'm back in the ability to interface with public and not in a work camp, they should hear a lot more from me too.
We see a lot of pictures, a lot of video of RCMP officers directing traffic, communities getting out quickly. How do you feel the response and the first responders and the plan to do this went?
It's phenomenal. I've seen the videos like everybody else, and the courage that these men and women are giving and putting before my citizens being able to move with their own selves at risk. They're citizens of my community too, and so I am absolutely grateful to our first responders.
Events like this, they're hard to plan for, but how much of a plan was put in place and foreseen on something like this, I guess?
Well, you always have a book, and a book is supposed to tell you how to do it. And you can call 911 and you can go through the cards and figure out what you're doing. But what's different in this case is that the rate of change that happens so quickly. I knew on the day that we were watching the hill treetops lighting up, that was predicted. I knew the time of day this was supposed to happen. I knew that we had locations that were spotting, and we were putting priority on that so that we'd be 15 kilometers and stay that way from any residences. And it just dramatically changed in such short order that the preparation time that we would have appreciated having just didn't exist. So compliments again to the people who eventually were able to get themselves into safe locations of their own way. Well, we had masses of traffic flowing at the same time, and I can tell you that I was worried that people would panic to extraordinary lengths and do harm to each other. That didn't happen. It was slow-moving. People were very scared, and you can't blame them. But in the end, everybody got out safely because I think there was a great collective effort in trying to be conscientiously courteous to the people around us.
Your municipality tweeted this morning that this convoy could take 4 days. Is it really going to take that long?
I'm doubtful that it will. I was one of the northern people that had gone up to the camps, and we were planning to drive out ourselves, but we've been incredibly fortunate to have the industry stepping in and giving us some opportunity to take flights out. I've seen a lot of people that were hanging on for that opportunity, but I also saw a lot of them diminish over time. So you'd leave one man with the car, and you'd send the rest of your family away for whatever the purposes were. But I think there was a point where everybody just was getting to the end. The camps were accommodating, but it was time to go.
What's the mood in those camps? I mean, that's obviously people scared when you first get there.
There's such an incredible range, and I can tell you that I've seen people who have lost everything break down, and it's heartbreaking, there's no question. And then the next morning you see them, their smiles, and they realize that they've got their lives, they've got their family, and they've got the opportunity to rebuild. You see children who are completely oblivious to it, and it's for the children that I think we all need to stay strong.
We're going to go to the phone lines now. On the phone, if you could just direct your question to the person that you would like to answer it. Operator, please put through the first caller.
Your first question comes from the line of Allison Martell from Reuters. Your line is open.
Thank you. I think this is probably best for Mr. Morrison. Do you have any more on the cause of the fire?
No, not at this time. The fire is still under investigation, as I had said earlier. This time of year, we often see human-caused wildfires as one of the main issues for us. So that's why we want all Albertans to take extra care out when they're in their forested areas. And that's whether that's through their ATVs or they're out there just working. They want to make sure that they're extra diligent. We have also had lightning fires this time of year already due to the early start to the season. So right now, our investigation teams are checking that, and the fire is still under investigation. We hope to know an answer to that in the coming days and weeks here.
Thank you. And just to follow up, yesterday we heard about some specific energy infrastructure that was in the path of the fire. Do you have any updates on that or on what might be in front of it now?
Yeah, the details that I know of right now is that the fire is at the gates of the Nexon Long Lake facility. But with the change in winds today, the winds will be pushing to the northeast away from that facility and then into the forested areas. And one of the things I will say about some of these larger oil and gas facilities, many of them have their own trained industrial wildfire fighting forces there. Industrial firefighting forces there. They're highly trained and have great emergency response plans in place for that. And they're generally very resilient based on the type of nature of how they're built with gravel and fire breaks around there. And again, a very resilient and good planning in terms of emergency response plans. So we feel that, the next couple of days will be very good for that Long Lake facility. But again, I'll reiterate, this is a dynamic, challenging, extreme fire. So, many things can happen, but at this point, the prediction over the next 2 days is for the fire to move away to the northeast.
Did you want to add? Premier DeVille just add to Chad's remarks.
Just on with respect to the state of fire hazard across the province. As you know, yesterday the province enacted a fire ban across the province. We also enacted a ban on incendiary target shooting. And the other thing that we are doing is we are asking people to refrain from going into the forests on a recreational basis at this point. So there's no ban on that because, quite frankly, that's a remarkably complex process. But we're asking people who might otherwise be recreationally planning to go out into the forests on the weekend to rethink that. With the greatest of intentions, vehicles, off-road vehicles, can sometimes inadvertently spark a fire when we have the kind of fire conditions that we have now. So even if you're out there and you decide you're not going to light a fire, if there are vehicles that are taking you out there, a problem could arise. So we're really asking people to seriously rethink whether that's the best thing to be doing this weekend while the fire hazard is as large as it is, and so many of our resources are dedicated to fighting this crisis in Fort McMurray. So thank you.
We're going to stay with the phone for a few more questions, and I'll come back to the floor for anything outstanding. Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question, it comes from Joffrey Morgan from Financial Post. Your line is open.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my question. Wanted to know if there was an update, if there was any damage to either electric plants or electric transmission lines, and whether or not damage to electricity there could make the firefighting efforts more difficult.
Morning, Scott Long, Executive Director, Operations, Alberta Emergency Management Agency. We've currently got ATCO Electric representatives and ATCO Gas representatives and TELUS representatives in both the Provincial Operations Centre and forward at the Regional Emergency Operations Centre. We're looking at all of those right now as it's all part of our early planning for re-entry, which is still not defined in terms of a timeline, but we're looking at all of that now so that when it is safe, we can make that happen quickly. I don't have specifics, but I know that preventative and precautionary measures were taken in terms of shutting off gas lines and valves to try and preserve all of that critical infrastructure. Again, we're not at the stage where we're doing those sorts of on-the-ground assessments. Hopefully that will be coming soon, but we are doing the pre-planning for that.
Thank you.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from the line of Virginia Bouchard from CBC. Your line is open.
Hi, my question will be to Chad Morrison. I was wondering, after Slave Lake, the report recommend that a firewall should be built. How come it wasn't put in place before in Fort McMurray?
Yeah, thanks for your question. One thing I want to reiterate here is that you can't compare the tragedies of both of those wildfires and those losses. Both, in my mind, both of these situations are extremely tragic and difficult. In this particular case, there is a lot of programs like Fire Smart and wildfire prevention, and I know the municipality of Wood Buffalo has had an active program and working to do those types of preventative, mitigative work already within the community. And I want to be clear. With the nature of this fire and the dangerous conditions we have, no size of fire break would hold this fire from doing anything. This fire has jumped the Athabasca River, which is over 1 kilometer wide. It is not only challenged firefighters, there's no tankers that we can put at this thing to stop it at this point. We want to just make sure that we use those tankers and resources and equipment to continue to protect the community. We want to support the municipal fire services as best we can to protect the community and all the critical infrastructure around there. So at this point, yes, my experience dealing with the municipality, they've done a lot of preventative work already, and I think that's probably helped within the community. But like I said, no fire break here would have stopped this fire, because this fire is jumping kilometers at a time. We're seeing fire spreads where it's creating its own lightning fires out of this fire. This is an extreme, rare fire event, and that's something that's historic for us.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from the line of Tanya Zielinski from Upstream International. Your line is open.
Hi there, good morning. First of all, Mayor Blake, I want you to know you have the support of all McMurrayites everywhere, even those of us who have left town. Secondly, my first question is for Chad Morrison. With the fire growing at the pace it is there a fear it could travel further north to Fort Chipewyan?
No, the fire won't. We don't believe the fire will move that far at this point. Really, at this point, we believe that the fire will continue to grow over the next couple of days to the northeast, really away from mostly populated areas into the sort of the Clearwater River area.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, for Scott Long, regarding the evacuations north of the city, do the evacuations include volunteers and staff at some of these work camps? Are you hoping to get absolutely everybody out of that area?
Good question. We had a teleconference with the industry, our industry partners, a joint industry emergency coordination center this morning. Right now our focus is on evacuating all of those impacted from Fort McMurray. Most oil and gas have already started as part of that thinning out non-essential personnel. But as Chad has said, they have, in accordance with regulation, they have great emergency management plans, highly trained professionals. So they will be, at this stage, they will be keeping some people, essential personnel, to keep those camps and their plants open. I can tell you in the Provincial Operations Center, we widen our view further north. We are now tracking closely locations of critical oil and gas infrastructure, airfields, and at any point in time, if we feel that there is a threat, then that discussion will open more and we will look at further evacuations as required.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from the line of Nia Williams from Thomson Reuters. Your line is open.
Hi, you said about the fire moving to the northeast today. What communities or energy facilities are in that direction and might be in its path?
It's Chad Morrison from Alberta Wildfire again. In that northeastern area where it's moving, to my knowledge, there isn't a lot of, there's not very many industrial facilities and no communities that I'm aware of that it would be impacting today. We did, our firefighting resources did yesterday rescue 15 campers along the Clearwater River Valley, and we continue to patrol the Clearwater River for any folks still out there. But there's no communities and no industrial facilities out to that way that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
We'll come back to the floor now for any outstanding questions.
Mr. Morrison, the area, as the fire moves northeast, that area below Fort McMurray, is it going to see fire moving back up into that part of town again, or is it all burned out there?
Yeah, you're correct in the fact that, apologies there, the fire is mostly burned out in those areas and continue to be secure. So we're not going to see movement in the inside of the burn that much. There is still hot spots and stuff that firefighters need to get to. Really, the growth is going to be on the outer perimeter in this forested area. But of course, given the extreme conditions we have, there, you know, we take nothing for granted, and our firefighters are on guard in that southern part of the community as well.
And the firefighters on the ground, what are they able to do at this point in time? I mean, are they still waiting to be deployed till this calms down?
No, all firefighters have been working day and night, establishing guard and protecting the homes and communities. You know, one of the really big things that we've learned, you know, through the years, even working in communities, even the Slave Lake experience, is that, you know, we're highly effective, you know, getting those homes put out. So when you have a big wind day or you have weather changes, that once that stuff's out, that area becomes secure and safe for first responders to get in, and the recovery can begin. So
I meant in terms of containing the broader fire.
Okay,
so much can be done at this point.
Can much be done? Can you state the question again, please?
To contain the broader fire.
To contain the broader fire, yeah, there's no amount of resources that we're going to be able to put on this fire to hold it in those forested areas. At this point, we're going to have to continue to steer the fire and protect the community. And in the forested areas, it will continue to grow. Around the community itself, we continue to secure that, and that being our top priority. I feel we've had very good success with our firefighting group to date, but again, still very, very early days for us.
And could I get a little detail about what search and rescue efforts have been launched with the helicopters, and how many people, what sort of situations?
So we've got specifically 2 helicopters who have the search and rescue task, who are on standby for any requests that come in. You would have heard during the session yesterday that there was one missing individual. I'm happy to report that we were able to find that individual yesterday morning shortly after this press conference, and he's safe and sound. So that has been the one mission we've been called out for.
I'm not sure if there's someone in this room that can answer this, but has there been any conversations with industry about fuel shortages? But then now the oil sands operations being affected, drawing down, is there any talk of fuel shortages in the province? Should we? No?
I can't comment on fuel shortages, but we have had lots of conversations with oil and gas, closely linked in with them. Right now, I'm not aware of any issues on the fuel side.
Chad, just briefly, you said there hasn't been anything that you can throw at it. So then, what do you do? What are we waiting for?
And I should reframe. You know, we can be very effective in those key areas. In terms of fighting the large landscape-size fire out there, that's going to be the most difficult part. We can be very, very successful in the community areas and critical areas. We can be very strategic in those priorities, and that's really how we fight our fires, is we're protecting those values, the community, critical infrastructure. So we are very effective there. What I want to say is that, you know, as the fire continues to grow rapidly, in the forested areas, we're going to continue to be challenged. So we'll put our air tankers in protecting places like Anzac and, the communities to the north and still be very effective there.
What needs to change, though? Just the weather?
Right now, we really do need some rain. There's no question about it. And then even once we get rain, there's still going to be a lot of fire out there and a lot of work, and we'll be here for weeks and weeks to put that fire out.
It was later in the summer, but last year we were told over in Saskatchewan that a lot of the fires in that area would likely burn until the snow falls. Are we kind of looking? Is it too soon to say that here, or are we kind of looking?
Too soon to say that. Excuse me. But in the forested areas, that's not uncommon to have large landscape fires, and the forested areas continue to burn late into the year.
Premier, you noted that airlines and industry were doing a lot to help. Are they going to be compensated for this, or are they donating this time?
I think, the way we move forward with respect to disaster recovery, in many cases, the airlines had been contracted already by, in some cases, industry. So everybody's coming together to do their work, and then when it's all done, we'll do an evaluation of the resources that went into it, and both through the provincial disaster recovery program and also the federal disaster recovery program. Much of the work that's been happening so far is all eligible for compensation through the federal program.
You said your government was going to be on the lookout for scammers and gougers and that sort of thing. I think, or your government did. Has anybody been caught?
That's not really been anything close to my focus, so I'm not quite sure where that came from. Right now, our focus is on getting the resources to the people who need them. That's the biggest issue, and supporting people who need to get that support. That's our focus right now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.